Welcome to HFY Galaxy Tales. Like this video and subscribe the channel for more HFY stories. The observation deck of the Helix station smelled like burnt circuitry and regret. I had been stationed there for 3 cycles, monitoring the human settlement on Refuge 7, and I thought I had seen everything these bizarre creatures could throw at me. Spoiler alert. I had not. My name is Vorith, and I am a tactical analyst for the Kryn Collective. That is a fancy way of saying I watch things happen and then write reports that nobody reads. It pays well. The benefits are decent. And up until that morning, it was reasonably safe. The humans had arrived on Refuge 7 approximately 8 months prior. They called themselves colonists. We called them a problem waiting to explode. Literally. Humans have this unfortunate tendency to turn everything they touch into either a weapon or a cooking implement, and sometimes both simultaneously. The settlement leader was a man named Marcus Cole. Big guy. Shoulders like loading crates. Had this permanent expression on his face like he was perpetually disappointed in the universe but too polite to mention it. He ran the colony with surprising efficiency, which made my job boring. Boring is good. Boring means I get to go home with all my appendages still attached. Then the Razak showed up. Oh, the Razak. Where do I even start with these lunatics? Picture the most aggressive, territorial, violence-addicted species you can imagine. Now triple it. Add spikes. Make them 8 feet tall. Give them an obsession with honor duels and a complete inability to understand the concept of negotiation. That is the Razak. They arrived in system on a Tuesday. I know it was a Tuesday because that is the day I usually treat myself to a decent meal at the station commissary, and the Razak just had to ruin it by broadcasting a challenge across every communication channel within 3 light years. The message was simple. Leave Refuge 7 within 1 solar rotation, or face total annihilation in glorious combat. They even included instructional videos on proper surrender postures. Very thoughtful of them, really. I immediately contacted Marcus Cole to relay the threat. His response was, and I quote, "Tell them we will think about it. We will think about it." The Razak Armada had 40 warships in orbit, enough firepower to crack the planet like an egg, and this human wanted to think about it. I filed my report. Updated my will. Started browsing real estate listings on quieter stations. The Razak gave them exactly 1 rotation. When the deadline expired, they sent down a landing party. 300 warriors. All armed to the teeth. Led by someone called Warlord Crothies, who had apparently never lost a battle and enjoyed reminding people of this fact constantly. The humans had maybe 70 adults in the colony. Most of them farmers. A few engineers. One very confused botanist who kept trying to classify the local flora even as an invasion force descended from the sky. I watched from orbit, my sensors locked on the colony perimeter. This was going to be a massacre. I had already started drafting the incident report in my head. Short. Tragic. Definitely not my fault. The Razak formed up in a standard intimidation formation. Lots of roaring. Weapon brandishing. The usual aggressive posturing that their kind finds so compelling. Warlord Crothies stepped forward, his armor gleaming in the afternoon sun, covered in the scars of 1,000 victories. Then Marcus Cole walked out to meet him. Alone. He was wearing his full combat armor. I had seen the specs on human military equipment before. Impressive stuff. Powered servos. Ablative plating. Integrated weapon systems. The works. Marcus looked like he could probably take on 5 or 6 Razak before going down. Not 300 though. Nobody could handle 300. Warlord Crothies laughed. It sounded like rocks in a blender. He raised his weapon, a massive plasma caster that could vaporize a tank, and prepared to make an example of this foolish human. That is when Marcus did something I will never forget as long as I live. He started taking off his armor. Not quickly. Not in a panic. Slowly. Deliberately. Like he was getting ready for bed. First the gauntlets. Then the chest plate. Piece by piece, he disassembled his protection and dropped it on the ground with heavy metallic thuds. The Razak stopped roaring. Silence fell over the field like a blanket. Warlord Crothes lowered his weapon slightly, his expression shifting from bloodlust to confusion. I leaned closer to my monitors. What was this idiot doing? Marcus removed the last piece of armor, his helmet, and tossed it aside. He stood there in just his basic clothing. No protection. No weapons visible. Just a human, flesh and bone, staring down an army. Then he smiled. Not a friendly smile. Not a nervous smile. The kind of smile that says, I know something you do not, and you are really not going to like it when you find out. Warlord Crothes took a step back. Just one step. Barely noticeable. But I caught it on my sensors. A being who had never retreated in his entire military career, who had conquered 17 worlds, who wore the bones of his enemies as decoration, had just taken a step backward from an unarmed human. Why do you remove your protection? Crothes finally asked, his voice carrying across the field. Do you mock us? Marcus rolled his shoulders, loosening up like he was about to do some light exercise. Protection? He laughed. Actually laughed. No, no. You misunderstand. That armor was not to protect me from you. The silence got heavier. I was holding my breath. So were half the colony settlers watching from behind their barricades. It was to protect you from me, Marcus continued. But you know what? I have been thinking. I have been out here on this rock for 8 months. Building. Farming. Being civilized. And I just realized something important. He cracked his knuckles. The sound echoed across the field. I really missed the old days. Warlord Crothes took another step back. His warriors shifted nervously, their weapons wavering. Something primal was happening here, something my instruments could not measure but every living being in that field could feel. You come to my colony, Marcus said, his voice getting quieter, which somehow made it more terrifying. You threaten my people. My farmers. My botanist who just wants to study plants in peace. You give us one day to abandon everything we built. Everything we worked for. He started walking forward. Slow. Steady. Inevitable. And you thought it would be easy. You thought we would just roll over. Because you have ships. You have numbers. You have your precious honor code and your combat traditions. Another step forward. The Razak line rippled backward like a wave. But here is something you clearly never learned about humans, Crothes. We are not scared of dying. We are not even particularly scared of losing. You know what really scares us? He stopped walking. The question hung in the air. Being bored. Then Marcus moved. I have watched combat footage from hundreds of species. I have seen Razak berserkers tear through fortified positions. I have witnessed Vex swarm tactics overwhelm superior forces. I have analyzed every major battle in this sector for the last decade. I had never seen anything like what Marcus Cole did that day. He did not have weapons. He did not need them. He moved through the Razak lines like water, like smoke, like violence given form. Every movement was precise. Efficient. Brutal. A strike to a knee joint, collapsing a warrior twice his size. A grab and twist, using a Razak's own momentum to send him crashing into 3 of his companions. A leap, a spin, a devastating elbow to a helmet that cracked the reinforced metal like pottery. It was not just fighting. It was art. Terrible, beautiful art. The Razak tried to surround him. Bad idea. He used their numbers against them, keeping them bunched up, making them interfere with each other's attacks. When they tried to spread out, he picked them off one by one, moving too fast for their weapons to track. Warlord Crothes finally snapped out of his shock and charged forward, his massive blade swinging in a decapitating arc that should have ended the fight. Marcus ducked under the swing, stepped inside the warlord's guard, and punched him in the throat. Not a wild haymaker. A short, controlled strike. Technical. Perfect. Crothes staggered, his weapon falling from nerveless fingers. His eyes went wide. Marcus had hit him in the one spot where Razak armor had a weak point, the articulated neck seal, with exactly enough force to collapse his windpipe without killing him. "You want to know why I took off the armor?" Marcus asked, his voice barely audible over the sound of Razak warriors scrambling backward. "Because I needed you to understand something." He grabbed Crothes by the front of his armor and held him upright as the warlord gasped for air. "Humans do not need technology to be dangerous. We do not need weapons to be deadly. We needed those things to be civilized. To control ourselves. To be better than our ancestors who climbed out of caves and decided to conquer their entire planet armed with nothing but rocks and bad attitudes." Crothes was turning an interesting shade of purple. "The armor was a leash. My leash. And you just made me take it off." Marcus released him. The warlord collapsed to his knees, sucking in air through his damaged throat. Around them, 300 Razak warriors stood frozen, their weapons lowered, their confidence shattered. "So here is what happens next," Marcus said, his voice carrying across the field with absolute authority. "You get back in your ships. You leave this system. You tell everyone you meet that Refuge 7 is off limits. And if I ever see another Razak within 10 light years of my colony." He smiled again. That terrible smile. "I will take off more than just my armor." The Razak left. All of them. Including Warlord Crothes, who had to be carried back to his shuttle by 4 of his warriors. Their ships broke orbit within the hour and vanished into hyperspace like they were being chased by demons. Maybe they were. I sat at my observation post, my report screen blinking with automated prompts, asking me to summarize the incident. How exactly was I supposed to explain what I just witnessed? How do you file paperwork for a species that treats protective equipment as a restraint device? How do you categorize beings who get more dangerous when you strip away their defenses? Marcus Cole put his armor back on piece by piece, returned to the colony, and apparently went back to discussing irrigation systems with his farmers. Like nothing had happened. Like he had not just single-handedly defeated an army while unarmored. "I need a drink. Or therapy. Possibly both. And I definitely need to update my threat assessment on humanity because clearly, we have been evaluating these creatures all wrong from the beginning." The armor was not protection. It was a warning. A safety measure. A sign that said danger, contained. And we just watched what happens when a human decides to remove that containment. I am putting in for a transfer. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere far from human space. Somewhere I never have to write the phrase, "He took off his armor mid-fight," in an official report and try to make it sound believable. But first, I need to watch the footage one more time. For analytical purposes, of course. Definitely not because part of me is terrified and fascinated in equal measure by what humanity truly is when you strip away the civilization and leave only the creature underneath. The creature that smiles before it strikes. The creature that sees overwhelming odds and starts removing its protection. The creature that scares away warlords with nothing but confidence and controlled violence. Yeah. I definitely need that drink. The transfer request was denied. Of course it was. The Kryn Collective does not accept existential dread regarding human unpredictability as a valid reason for reassignment. Apparently, my superiors found my initial report fascinating. They wanted more data. More observations. More insight into how these bizarre creatures operated. Lucky me. 3 weeks after the Razak incident, I was still stationed on Helix, still monitoring Refuge 7, and still trying to process what I had witnessed. The colony had returned to normal operations with disturbing speed. Marcus Cole was back to approving construction permits. The farmers were farming. The botanist was still cataloging plants with excessive enthusiasm. Nobody talked about the battle. Nobody seemed traumatized. It was like they had all collectively decided that watching their leader dismantle an invasion force with his bare hands was just another Tuesday. Humans are weird. I had started compiling a comprehensive analysis of human combat capabilities when my console lit up with incoming signals. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system edge. Big ones. My stomach, or the equivalent organ in my species, dropped straight through the floor. The signatures were Valdrin. Oh, this was bad. This was spectacularly bad. The Valdrin Consortium made the Rozhok look like aggressive toddlers. They were corporate raiders, military contractors, and strategic opportunists all rolled into one efficient, terrifying package. They did not invade for honor. They invaded for profit. And apparently, someone had told them about Refuge 7. I immediately opened a channel to the colony. Marcus answered within seconds, his face appearing on my screen. He was holding a cup of coffee. At a time like this, the man was drinking coffee. "Morning, Vorith," he said pleasantly. "What can I do for you?" "The Valdrin are here," I said, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. 12 capital ships. Estimated ground force capacity of 5,000 troops. They are moving into orbital positions now. Marcus took a sip of his coffee. "Ha! That is more than the Rozhok brought." "More. That is an understatement of catastrophic proportions. The Valdrin do not do warning shots. They do not negotiate. They identify valuable assets, they take them, and they eliminate resistance with extreme prejudice." "Sounds unpleasant," Marcus agreed. "Unpleasant? They are going to flatten your colony and enslave anyone who survives. You need to evacuate immediately. I can try to arrange transport for non-combatants, but you have maybe 2 hours before they start landing operations." Marcus set down his coffee cup. "Vorith, I appreciate the concern. Really. But we are not evacuating. Have you lost your mind? I watched you fight the Rozhok. You were impressive. Terrifying, even. But there are limits to what one human can accomplish against 5,000 professional soldiers with orbital support." "One human, sure," Marcus said. "Good thing there are 73 of us." I blinked all 4 of my eyes in sequence. "You cannot be serious. You saw what the Rozhok brought. The Valdrin are bringing 20 times that number. I heard you the first time. Numbers. Got it." He leaned back in his chair. "Question for you, Vorith. In all your research on humans, did you ever look into our military history?" "Some of it. Your species has an unfortunate tendency toward self-destructive conflict." "True enough. But did you notice any patterns? Any recurring themes?" I pulled up my files, scanning through the data. "You fight amongst yourselves frequently. You develop increasingly devastating weapons. You have a strange obsession with last stands and Pyrrhic victories. Keep going. You show remarkable resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. You adapt quickly to new threats. You have a disturbing tendency to win battles you should statistically lose." I paused. "Where are you going with this?" Marcus smiled. Not the terrifying smile from the Rozhok encounter. Something else. Something almost sad. Every single person in this colony is a veteran, Vorith. We did not come out here to farm because we loved agriculture. We came out here because we were done fighting. We wanted peace. We wanted to build something instead of destroying things. We wanted to be better than what the war made us. The war. He meant the human consolidation wars. The conflict that had unified their species after decades of brutal internal struggle. I had read about it. 70 billion casualties. Entire cities turned to ash. Weapons that violated half the conventions in known space. But here is the thing about veterans, Marcus continued, his voice going quiet. We know how to fight. We know how to win. And more importantly, we know what happens if we lose. We have families here. Friends. A future we built with our own hands. The Valdren want to take that from us. He stood up, and I could see other humans moving in the background of the transmission. They were gearing up. Not panicking. Not rushing. Just methodically preparing with the calm efficiency of people who had done this 1,000 times before. So yeah, they have numbers. They have ships. They have all the advantages. But they made one critical mistake. What mistake? They gave us 2 hours to get ready. The transmission cut out. I sat there in stunned silence for approximately 30 seconds before my tactical training kicked in. I started monitoring everything. Troop movements. Communications. Power signatures. If the humans were about to do something insane, I wanted to document every second of it. The Valdren landed exactly 93 minutes later. They deployed in textbook formation. 3 waves. First wave secured the perimeter. Second wave advanced on the colony proper. Third wave held in reserve for reinforcement or exploitation. 5,000 troops against 73 farmers. The massacre was going to be spectacular. Except it was not. The first wave hit the perimeter and immediately ran into problems. The humans had spent 2 hours turning their peaceful farming colony into a nightmare of improvised fortifications and tactical traps. What looked like irrigation ditches were actually concealed firing positions. The grain silos had firing ports. The greenhouse was apparently bulletproof and contained enough weapons to arm a small nation. But that was just standard defensive preparation. Clever, but not enough to stop the Valdren. Then the humans started fighting, and I realized that Marcus had not been exaggerating. These were not farmers. These were soldiers wearing farmer costumes. Every single one of them moved with practiced precision. They did not panic under fire. They did not waste ammunition. They communicated in crisp, efficient bursts that told me they had fought together before. Often. A woman named Riley took out an entire Valdren squad with a hunting rifle and what appeared to be supernatural patience. She would fire once, reposition, and fire again from a completely different angle. The Valdren could not pin her down because she never stayed in one place long enough to be targeted. A man called Jackson turned the maintenance garage into a kill zone using nothing but welding equipment and creative thinking. Valdren troops would enter seeking cover and encounter improvised flamethrowers, electrified floors, and doors that locked from the outside. It was horrible. It was effective. The botanist, a cheerful woman named Amy, had apparently spent 8 months cataloging which local plants were toxic, flammable, or explosive. She deployed this knowledge with terrifying enthusiasm, turning the agricultural fields into a minefield of botanical hazards. But Marcus was the worst of them all. He had put his armor back on this time. Full combat configuration. And he moved through the battlefield like a force of nature, coordinating his people, exploiting every weakness in the Valdren formation, turning their numerical advantage into a liability by forcing them to fight in confined spaces where numbers meant nothing. The Valdren commander, a calculating individual named Strex, watched his first wave get shredded and immediately deployed the second wave. Standard doctrine. Overwhelmed the defenders with sustained pressure. It did not work. The humans were not defending. Not really. They were conducting a mobile defense, constantly shifting positions, hitting the Valdren from unexpected angles, and then melting away before a counterattack could form. They were not trying to hold ground. They were trying to make every meter of ground so expensive that the Valdren would run out of soldiers before the humans ran out of space. And it was working. I watched in horrified fascination as 73 humans held off 5,000 Valdren for 6 hours. 6 hours of continuous combat. The colony looked like a war zone. Buildings were burning. The fields were cratered. But the humans were still fighting, still moving, still making the Valdren pay for every advance. Then something changed. The Valdren pulled back. All of them. They consolidated their forces at the landing zone and held position. Strex had apparently decided that a frontal assault was too costly. He was going to use orbital bombardment instead. Level the colony from space and sort through the rubble later. I tried to warn Marcus, but communications were down. The fighting had damaged too many relay stations. All I could do was watch as the Valdren capital ships began charging their main weapons. This was it. The humans had fought brilliantly, but you cannot fight starship weapons with small arms and determination. Then my sensors detected something strange. Energy signatures in the colony. Big ones. Coming from underground. What had these lunatics been hiding? The ground opened up in 6 locations around the colony perimeter. Massive doors, camouflaged to look like natural terrain. And rising from those hidden silos were human-built surface-to-orbit missiles. Military grade. Probably left over from their war. Definitely illegal under about 40 different treaties. Marcus Cole appeared on every communication channel in the system. Audio only. Attention Valdren forces. You have 5 seconds to begin evacuation procedures. If your ships are still in orbit when these missiles reach effective range, I will demonstrate why humans banned these particular weapons after our war ended. Strex responded immediately. You are bluffing. You would not dare use banned weapons. The galactic community would sanction your entire species. Probably, Marcus agreed. But you will be too dead to file the complaint. 4 seconds. This is insane. Mutual destruction serves nobody. 3 seconds. And yeah, it is insane. That is kind of our thing. The Valdren ships began emergency burn. They were leaving. Actually leaving. Abandoning 5,000 troops on the surface because their commander understood something critical. Humans will absolutely follow through on mutually destructive threats. Marcus let them go. The missiles stayed in their silos. The ground forces surrendered within the hour when they realized their ride had left without them. I filed my report in complete silence. What do you even say? How do you explain a species that treats banned weapons as a bluff they are totally willing to call? How do you classify beings who spend 8 months pretending to be farmers while sitting on enough firepower to crack a moon? Marcus contacted me the next day. Hey, Voreth. Thanks for the early warning on the Valdren. Gave us time to prepare. You had illegal weapons hidden under your colony the entire time. Yep. From the war. Figured we might need them someday. You could have led with that information when the Razak showed up. Where would be the fun in that? Besides, wanted to see if I still had it. Been a while since I fought without the armor doing half the work. You are completely insane. Probably. But hey, we kept our colony. Nobody died who did not come here trying to kill us. And we sent a pretty clear message that Refuge 7 is off limits. He was right. Within a week, every major power in the sector had quietly updated their territorial maps. Refuge 7 was now marked as a human settlement. Do not approach. Do not engage. Definitely do not invade. I finally got my transfer approved. Not because I requested it, but because the Kryn Collective decided they needed me closer to human space. Apparently, my reports were too valuable. They wanted me to study more human colonies. Document their behavior. Figure out what makes them tick. So here I am. Still watching humans. Still filing reports that nobody believes until they see the footage. Still trying to understand a species that treats armor as optional, weapons as negotiable, and overwhelming odds as a personal challenge. But I learned something important from Marcus Cole and his colony of warrior farmers. Humans are not dangerous because of their technology. They are not dangerous because of their weapons. They are dangerous because they understand something fundamental about violence that most species miss. Violence is a tool. Technology is a tool. Even civilization is a tool. But the human underneath, the creature that evolved by climbing to the top of their food chain through pure determination and creative aggression, that is the real weapon. And when they take off the armor, when they put down the guns, when they strip away all the tools and technology and stand there with nothing but flesh and bone and that terrible smile, that is not weakness. That is a warning. I am never filing another transfer request. If I am going to be stuck studying humans for the rest of my career, I might as well get good at it. Maybe write a book. So you want to understand humans, a survival guide for everyone else. First chapter, do not invade their colonies. Second chapter, seriously, did you not read chapter 1? Yeah. That should cover it.